he said that Africa shall never be conquered. The more warriors they go down, it's the more warriors will come. The more Africans that they kill, it's the more they see coming still. Juju, Zulu, Ashanti, what you see, Yoruba.
Ion Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays, at 10 a.m., and exclusively, on I-95.5 FM.
And streamed live, on the Ion Dependency Facebook page, and YouTube channel.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and to everyone joining us online. You're locked on to Dependency, real conversations on addiction, recovery, and public health. I am Garth.
And I'm Natasha. Today we are taking on a topic that has been stirring debate since cannabis was decriminalized in Trinidad and Tobago back in 2019. We're going to be talking about its impact on mental health, especially psychotic disorders. And this is something that we have been saying for years on Ion Dependency based on anecdotal evidence, but we now have the empirical data to support it.
We'll be joined by Dr. Joni Lipau and Professor Gerard Hutchinson of the University of the West Indies. Their new policy brief, based on the INTREPID II study, shows Trinidad has some of the highest rates of daily cannabis. Trinidad and Tobago, that is, has some of the highest rates of daily cannabis use worldwide, and that this is strongly linked to psychotic disorders.
So what does the link between frequent cannabis use and psychosis mean for our young people, for families, and for national policy? We are going to unpack that this morning. And later in the show, we were going to replay some clips from our interview with Lisa Bigioni of Stok'd Cannabis in Canada to see how other countries are handling regulation and protecting young people from harm.
So stay with us. We're live until 12 on Facebook, YouTube, and right here on I-95.5 FM. If you know someone who should be listening to this broadcast this morning, please alert them so that they can get some education. To the young lady who has been engaging us for the past week. And, I'll share some of your comments with the audience. And, of course, you will be able to, because you said you can't wait to call in, so we can't wait to have you either. Yes. So, can you, while we wait on Professor Hutchinson to arrive,
Welcome, Dr. Lipo.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. What would you like to know about?
Well, to start with, I have never heard of Dr. Lipo before. And of course, some of our listening audience, I don't think we ever heard you in a song by the news or,
It's
so
her
you
first time she
came out of the wilderness with this, and people be asking, who is this
lady?
Upstart doctor who thinks she knows all about cannabis, which is a herb and not a drug, and so on. So you can start us off, Dr. Lipau, by, can you walk us through first the INTREPID II study and why Trinidad was included in it?
Okay, so first of all, I am a lecturer in the psychology unit in the Department of Behavioral Sciences in UWI. I was very involved in the INTREPID II study. I was a research coordinator in the study, and I did a lot of the data collection. I ended up writing the paper linking cannabis use to psychotic disorders. The paper ended up yielding lots of findings that were quite interesting and eye-opening. And because of that, that led to many conferences and, sharing it with different persons. I'm not a very public person, so if you've not heard of me, it's because I am a bit shy. I do share things in academic settings more, but I'm very excited to be here. And I do think that this is important, what we share, because I do think it carries implications for risk.
Because before you continue, just yesterday, Natasha heard me speaking with someone. The day before, someone again reached out to us, and which made Natasha exclaim, so where's NADAP and where's the other people who they're supposed to be calling, but they're calling us. Fine, we don't have a problem with it. But the marijuana that we knew back then is seemingly different now.
Yes.
And it's causing a lot of young people to end up in the psych ward, on the psych ward. So tell us, why was Trinidad and Tobago included in this, and then you could walk us through.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the principal investigator of this INTREPID study is Professor Craig Morgan from King's College London.
Right.
And most of the evidence, linking cannabis use to psychosis comes from, as you know, the global north, so from Europe, from the United States. And the point of this study was really to look at psychotic disorders in the global south. So the 3 sites that were chosen was in Kanchipuram in India, in Ibadan in Nigeria, and in the northern part of Trinidad and Tobago. So there's a specific catchment area. And one of the first objectives of the study was to get an idea of incidence. And incidence means the number of new cases of psychotic disorder. Right? So what do I mean by psychotic disorder? It's disorders that carry psychotic symptoms. These symptoms usually look like hallucinations, so like seeing things that aren't there, or hearing voices that aren't there, or delusions, like believing things that aren't there. So this was the purpose of the study, and it went on from 2018 to 2020. It involved looking at 200 persons who have psychosis and comparing them to 200 controls. What do I mean by a control? A control is a person who is similar, who is matched to the person with psychosis. So they're the same gender, they come from the same neighborhood, they're around the same age. So we could compare and see what are some of the risk factors or the protective factors that might exist that relate to psychosis.
Now, when you say you studied persons with psychosis, these are persons who would have been diagnosed.
So these are persons who identified with psychotic symptoms
Okay.
over a 2-year period. So they either showed up in the psychiatric clinics, they showed up at St. Anne's, or they showed up at traditional healers. So we looked for them everywhere.
Okay.
So even, priests or healers or whatever you want to call it, we found persons who had psychotic symptoms for the first time all over. We recruited them into the study. We did a very, very lengthy interview. There's an immense amount of data collection. I would say the interview lasts maybe 6 to 8 hours in total over the course of a few days.
Wow.
So we look at substance use, childhood trauma, lifetime trauma, all of their symptoms. I mean, anything you could think of that could possibly relate to psychosis, we collected that information.
What's predisposition this involved to in that study?
So yes, we looked at genetics. We took blood samples.
Right.
Right.
So we have genetics as well. We also took their family history of mental illness as well.
Right.
So yeah.
Because the individual was blaming that and not the marijuana. So maybe you can connect the dots for them. But what stood out most about Trinidad's results compared to the other countries you studied? Now, we say in Trinidad, but did you all just keep the study in Trinidad and not go across to Tobago?
No, so we kept it within Trinidad because of feasibility in terms of the researchers and the capacity, as well as there's a limited budget. Like, we have a specific area within which we look at.
Yes.
So unfortunately it did not include Tobago.
Yeah, because I could tell you in Tobago, marijuana is used for like breakfast.
Yeah.
Snacks.
I think here as well. I think you see that as well here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So go ahead. So Yes, so what stood out about the Trinidad's result compared to the other countries you studied?
I think maybe the first thing that stood out was the higher incidence of psychotic disorders here compared to the other sites and compared to international findings. So the incidence of, as I said, incidence is the number of new cases of psychotic disorder. In India was 20.7. In Nigeria it was 14.4, and in Trinidad it was 59.1. So much higher. So in other words, our rates of psychosis are much higher. So that was one. I think that was obviously a eye-opening finding by itself. And the other thing we saw was a very high rate of cannabis use compared to international findings. So there is another study called the EU-GEI study that looks at, similar to this study, but it was done across different European nations. And you saw that the general population, which is the controls that you use as an assessment of the general population, the general population rate of cannabis use, so how many percentage of the general population was using cannabis daily in London was about 12%. In Amsterdam, it was about 13%, and here it was about 20%. So about 20% of our general population seems to be using cannabis daily. And of course, this is linked to a higher risk of psychotic disorder.
Garth, let's introduce Professor Hutchinson, who has just joined us. Thank you very much, sir, for
Yes, hi. Good morning.
joining us. No stranger to Independency, of course, but we're glad to have you. Just picking up on the point about the person's diagnosed, do you think that that indicator is a positive thing in our context, in the sense of people knowing what that the symptoms they're experiencing is linked to a mental health disorder? That the fact that it is being diagnosed in whatever setting, is that a positive indicator, you think, in terms of our healthcare?
I'm not too sure what you're asking.
If whether the indication that persons have been diagnosed, as opposed to, we tend to have this sense of somebody experiencing some of the symptoms of psychosis just being mad, right? Or just writing it off as something spiritual or otherwise, and actually having a diagnosis. Do you think that speaks to something positive that is happening within our healthcare system or otherwise?
I think there are certainly positives and negatives. I think it's important to take into consideration the subjective experience of the person who is being diagnosed. The diagnosis does carry stigma,
Right.
and I do think that that's important to think about, that being a negative effect of it. But it certainly improves your access to medication to help. I think our public mental health care system is very accessible. At the end of the day, if a person is suffering, right, and also if they are a risk to themselves in any way, it's important that they get help. So I think for the most part, it's a positive thing.
Can I ask Professor? Professor, I mean, I don't know where you found the time, but you decided to be part of this study as well. What prompted this? What prompted this in the first place?
Prompted the study?
Yes.
So there are several strands that led to it. One is, or was, there is very little research done in populations outside of North America and Europe in general, but certainly even more so with regard to mental illness. And the need to engage that research, I think, was one of the big driving forces. The other one is that the rates of psychosis among people of particularly Europe, where either they had colonial histories, Holland, France, you see the same things where the rates of psychosis are high. So the interest in certainly the Caribbean from that point of view was stimulated by that. So there are several things that we tried to do with Intrepid. One was to determine whether, in fact, the rates across the so-called global south were similar, and that's why we chose India, Nigeria, so that, and Trinidad is a place where you have a mix of both, to compare. It's not a completely even comparison, because one of the things, and this goes back to Natasha's question, is that, and as Joni was saying, while of course there are problems, our public mental health care system is much more evolved than in those places.
Really?
So you find that access there is very limited to public services, meaning services that are available free of charge, services inclusive of things like medication. You find there the services are not very accessible, and things like medication you have to pay for.
Okay.
So that, I mean, was one striking difference. But yeah, so the idea was really to try to identify what were if the rates were similar, because the going back to the reasons now, the theory behind psychosis is that if it's a brain disorder, it should be more or less the same across populations, whereas if there's a lot of social influence or environmental influence, then the rate should vary, and that's what we found. And one of the environmental factors here certainly is cannabis use.
No, one second, Natasha. No, you spoke about the amount of cases that popped up, right? Could you give us the average age of, because we've been hearing about a lot of young people being admitted for psychiatric treatment just from their first smoke of marijuana. So what's the average age you all discovered as well?
Is certainly young adult. I don't remember the age. It was like, I think, late 20s. It was like 27 or 28 here. But again, that was younger than in the other countries.
Our study also only looked at 18 and above. So it could include younger, but we didn't look at that.
Yeah, because I mean, from the phone calls that we've got, I could tell you 15, 14, even as far as 11. You know, people have been to St. Anne's.
And that is in line with research that has been done across the region too, in terms of first use of drugs, including alcohol. Alcohol and cannabis kind of running neck and neck in the region, so that tracks, so to speak. But so it wasn't surprising necessarily to hear that at the level of, or the frequency of use of the subjects locally. But then that raises the question of the accessibility of the drug in our context vis-a-vis others. But you want to take a break and we'll come back to
and while we go to the break, I want to, our guest here, if you're just joining us, is Dr. Gerard Hutchinson in studio with us, also Dr. Lipau, Dr. Lipau. The decriminalization of marijuana in Trinidad and Tobago. Were you all a part of that discussion? Did anybody contact you to say, well, okay, let's get your thoughts on it, because you, as in your role, Professor Hutchinson and Dr. Were you all contacted at all to be part of that?
Local evidence, whatever is needed, because I do believe it's quite important to have informed choices on this matter, and just to think carefully about the steps we're taking to make sure checks and balances are in place with decriminalization and legalism.
If you're just joining us, I see the same thing happening again this morning. Our Facebook feed is freezing up ever so often. I don't know what is causing it, but if you have problems there, just hop over to the YouTube channel. We have that back up there, unless they try to slow that one down too. But we're going to go for a break. And when we return, we continue this discussion with Dr. Lipau and Professor Hutchinson. I know some of you out there are very interested in hearing You want to make sense of what it is happening with this marijuana situation in Trinidad and Tobago, and this is your opportunity. So stay right there. We'll return in a moment.
Hello?
Hello, Mr. Dobson here from HMP London. Can I speak to Mr. James, please?
This is Mr. James speaking.
Thank you. Can you hold the line? I have a call coming through for you, sir.
Sure.
Hello, Daddy.
Hello, yes, Brian?
Daddy, I'm just calling to tell you that look up in the UK for drug trafficking.
Oh, yeah? You lock up? And you tell me I was going to Tobago? And I tell you about them boy I was liming with? Well, all right. Don't drop the soap. Carry on.
On Dependency, reality radio at its best, every Sunday on I-95.5 FM.
Slavery, a terrible time in our history. The kidnapping, buying and selling of people for profit, the exploitation of another human being. It still exists today. It has a new name, human trafficking. Anyone can be a victim. There is forced labor, sexual exploitation, and domestic servitude. Human trafficking is a worldwide problem and an emerging concern for us here in Trinidad and Tobago. If you know of or suspect human trafficking activity, call the counter-trafficking hotline at 800-4CTU or 800-4288. Human trafficking is a crime. Identify it, report it, stop it. A message from the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security.
Join us this Sunday for episode 36 of On Dependency, reality radio at its best.
This Sunday, On Dependency takes a closer look at the link between cannabis use and the psychotic disorders in Trinidad. Dr. Joni Lee Powell and Professor Gerard Hutchinson of the University of the West Indies join us to discuss their groundbreaking policy brief from the INTREPID II study. The research shows that frequent cannabis use, especially starting young, nearly doubles the odds of developing psychotic disorders, and that Trinidad has some of the highest rates of early and daily use in the world. What does this mean for our young people, for national health, and for cannabis policy in a post-decriminalization era? What should leaders and communities be doing right now? Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the On Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. The Counter-Trafficking Unit, Ministry of Homeland Security brings you On Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Ion Dependency, and we are talking about the link between cannabis use and psychotic disorders. This is as a result of a study that was done by the two persons in studio with us this morning, Professor Hutchinson and Dr. Lipau. Were part of this study, which has finally given us some empirical data that we can use to support our arguments for certain policy changes, certain awareness and education campaigns, etc. And just before we go back into the questions, we raised a question off the air that I would like you to hear the part of the response that Professor Hutchinson gave. And the question was, why did we pursue, or how did in our pursuit of the decriminalization, where have we made any missteps in the pursuit of that, and how what are some of the ways in which it could have been done better? And you made one very important point better, and you made one very important point, Professor. But I want to suggest that point
I think that has been one of the unfortunate consequences of the decriminalization process. The perception that cannabis use is entirely harmless, and that however you use it, because it's a herb, because it's something that people have advocated being used for things like meditation, and even the advance in the idea of medical marijuana. All of those things have I think shifted the perspective toward a acceptance of it as something that anyone and everyone can use, and in any quantity. And I think that unless that shifts, getting people to accept its risks will always be difficult. And I would also add that the same thing applies to alcohol. I mean, the World Health Organization now is saying that no amount of alcohol intake is safe, and that alcohol has, wholly outside of the mental health problems, has multiple physical health problems that can develop from long-term use. And I think it's the parallels are there for cannabis as well.
Agreed.
Doctor?
You want to add to that?
No.
All right, well, let's go back to the questions then. How strong is the link that you have found between cannabis use and psychotic disorders? Is there a very strong link, or is it just...
So it was a strong link. The two, I would say, primary findings that stand out is that frequent cannabis use, which is using cannabis once a week or more, was associated with a doubling of your odds of having a psychotic disorder. Using cannabis at a young age for the first time, so the age at which you begin using cannabis, if that was at a young age, so at 15 years old or earlier, that also was associated with about a doubling of your risk of so the age at which you begin using cannabis, if that was at a young age, so at 15 years old or earlier, that also was associated with about a doubling of your risk of
and from persons who have been in this and from persons who have been in this situation. But I want to believe that maybe people are not seeing the harm that comes with having a psychotic disorder or mental health disorder that is psychotic in nature, because I don't think that people make the connection between how a mental disorder can obviously interrupt your life and disturb your trajectory in life. People understand the importance of their mental health, really.
Yeah, I think of course the people who face the burden of the problem would be parents and relatives and of course close friends. But I mean, whether it's interruption of their academic lives, problems at work, not being able to sustain employment, problems in relationships, so there are multiple problems that and they all compound each other, in addition to this risk of developing psychosis, which ultimately is a disorder that distorts your ability to engage and appreciate what reality is. So one of the other negative effects is where young people especially develop these beliefs, what we call or what are called delusional beliefs, often focused on things like being persecuted or being plotted against or being harmed in some way by even those same relatives and people who are trying to take care of them. And that in turn interferes with their ability to accept that there is a problem. So I think the other difficulty is that in terms of rehabilitation or treatment facilities, cannabis has never been a focus. So on one hand, you have lots of facilities that address alcohol abuse and dependence, and of course also directed at other drugs, cocaine, but as I said, this perception cannabis is not a drug that requires that kind of attention. Is another part of the problem, and many parents, just throw their hands in the air, in desperation because they can't find any service that helps the young adults, their young adult children, deal with this problem of cannabis use.
Yeah, that is an important point to people's understanding of the risks that it poses, right?
Also clear that the more potent the cannabis, is kinds of responses after they've used edibles, where the concentration of THC tends to be quite high. And in the aftermath of having these edibles, I mean, just recently we had a guy who came in because he wanted to jump off the apartment building in which they were eating the edibles. So it creates that kind of reaction, and in response, the sense that it is a problem still remains very muted.
No, that is very telling what you just said there, Doc. And the thing is, after the decriminalization and the cultivating, everybody have their own way of cultivating their drug, this herb, and but who and the cultivating, everybody have their own way of cultivating their drug, this herb, and but who yes, it leaves you feeling sort of empty at the end of the interview. So please share with us.
So as we were talking about THC potency, so we did not measure THC potency here with the INTREPID study, but international findings suggest that there's a lot of evidence linking it. So we see that the daily use of high THC increases the risk nearly fivefold. And so this high, if you use it daily and it's just low potency, your risk may be about 2-3-fold, but if it's high potency, this increases now to a fivefold increase. The other concern, so we know that more THC is associated with more psychotic symptoms. The other concern is that more THC is associated with more psychotic symptoms. The other concern is that globally, the estimates of THC seem to be climbing. So THC content has risen from about 4% in the 1990s to about 15% today. Extracts can go as high up to 90%. So there are cannabis products like shatter or wax or resin. And these are like solid cannabis products, and the THC potency could go up to 90%. So what is considered high potency? High potency is usually anything that is above 10 to 12%. So you're above 10 to 12 THC, and I'm telling you that there are products out there that can go up to 90%. Right? So you think about this, and it's quite alarming. It's the alcohol equivalent would be like saying there are beers, and then there is methylated spirits. Right? It's just not the same. You can't drink a bottle of methylated spirits and expect to have the same effect as if you drank a beer. There's no current cap on THC potency, so we don't have any legislation saying like this is the maximum amount that is allowed. There's no testing of THC potency. So I myself, I looked on Instagram and social media at different cannabis vendors, and I've called. The first observation I made was that many of them applied for their license, hadn't received it yet, but were quite willing to sell to me. The second...
Hold on. Go back a bit. I missed that part.
So
went
I
to
looked.
Instagram.
I went to Instagram
Yes.
to look for cannabis vendors.
In Trinidad?
Yes. There are many vendors, many, and there are lots of them sell edibles.
Yes.
So lots of gummies, lots of brownies, whatever. So I called people up on the phone, and I said, "Do you have your license yet?" And they said, "Oh, we applied for it." Okay, well, can I
To
buy
who?
from you? They applied to the cannabis license.
Well,
So
news to us too. Did not know that it.
Public?
yes, it's in the. I think it's within the cannabis control bill. So that
Okay.
piece of legislation that was passed, it's within the bill, stating that if
Yeah,
you
we
want
have
to
not
sell,
been reading.
you
Yeah.
have to,
Okay.
yeah.
Gotcha, go ahead.
So they were willing to sell me without their license being granted. And the other thing is when I asked about potency of their product,
Yes.
no one could tell me what was their potency. They only spoke in terms of grams.
Right.
And when I said, what's the estimate of the potency, no one could tell me. They just said, it's going to have you feeling good, or it's going to make you calm, or it's going to make you happy. There was no... So this is concerning to me because it means that consumers do not have the right to make an informed choice. And I think that is very important because we have the right to make informed choices as consumers of every other product.
Absolutely.
I can go in the grocery and I can see the grams of sugar in a product. I can see how much alcohol. I can see the milligrams of caffeine. So I know what I'm putting in my body. I have a teenage daughter. When I tell her how to be safe when she goes out, I tell her, I said, only buy bottled drinks or look at the percentage of alcohol. You know how much alcohol you are consuming. There is no such guidance I can ever give my child on cannabis right now. There's nothing I can say to her that would say, how do you choose low potency? So you asked Professor Hutchinson just now about the trees, how do we feel about the number of trees? Where are you getting those trees from? How do you know the potency of the trees?
Or the seeds, the
How
plant
do you
the
know the
trees.
seeds, right? That is my concern. So if I am someone that wants to have a low risk and I want to purchase low potency cannabis, because that's what I'm interested in. I want to make sure and minimize my risk of being exposed to high THC. Where do I source that? Nobody knows. And that to me is, that's very concerning. Yeah.
Potentially dangerous, yes, because when we interviewed Lisa from Stok'd Cannabis, she did mention that they only can purchase the products from the government supplier. Everything is labeled.
Yeah.
Down to the potency and the potency per gram. And they cannot even package or market their product in any way that is attractive to young people. They are regulated, they are inspected regularly. So people will come into the shop, the government regulators will come into the shop, see what is there, and they can't even display the products to the people buying the product. They can't have the cannabis on display. It has to be locked away. So all of these things are in place to protect consumers in Canada. But here, the decriminalization, and I understand the reason for wanting to minimize the number of incarceration for possession. That is a legitimate reason to decriminalize. But if you're going to have possession of this drug, and it is a drug, let me remind everybody, it is a drug, it has to be, and it is going to be consumed by people, there has to be some regulation around how it is produced and how it is sold. And giving consumers a choice.
Yeah.
Professor, how do you feel before we come back to doctor? How do you feel about that?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think it's again, the industry, the development of an industry has to be accompanied by standards. Like in Colorado, for example, they saw an uptick in psychiatric admissions, in accidents, in self-harm, and all of those were related to excessive cannabis use, one, and two, of use of cannabis outside of whatever the regulated authorities had authorized. So it means that the impact of regulations would be to contain it to some extent, but if there are no regulations, obviously there will be a lot of problems.
It's open season. So as the Prime Minister recently announced the position that the government was going to increase the age limit for use of cannabis and alcohol. Why is then the age of first use such an important factor in terms of the risk for psychosis as a result of cannabis?
Well, in simplistic terms, it has to do the development of the brain. So your brain at the ages of, let's say, 11 to 15 are in a kind of growth spurt, which coincides with the change from childhood to adolescence, and of course becoming an adult. So those changes in the brain become more sensitive to toxins during that period. And again, several studies have shown that people who use cannabis in that age range, and more so if they use it excessively, have problems with short-term memory, have problems with learning, have problems with decision-making and judgment, and eventually, if that use continues as they grow older, are also more likely to develop psychotic episodes. I think another important point is that the psychosis that brings people, that would bring someone to the hospital, is towards the severe end of the spectrum, meaning that it's so disturbing that people feel, or their family feels, well, no, we have to get help for this. Whether it's self-destructive behavior or threats or violence and agitation. But we have a lot of people who don't come to the hospital who have psychotic experiences, but who cope with them and manage them. They have hallucinations because sometimes in talking to clients who have come to the hospital, they would say, "But yeah, my friend experiences the same thing, but he's okay," and not recognizing that the friend is also on that trajectory to eventually develop a more serious problem. So even with these high rates, it's still, if you will, the tip of the iceberg. And the implications, as I said, for school, for productivity, for healthy life, are quite profound.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and that's the voice of Professor Gerard Hutchinson. And also, we have in studio with us Dr. Lee Powell, and they are sharing some very pertinent information with us this morning regards to their findings and the INTREPID II studies. Before we go back to Dr. Lee Powell again to share more, but she had what you said there to me is even more concerning, Professor. As well, we'll be hearing from parents too about the aggressiveness of the individual now. Now, marijuana was associated with cool, chill, right? People use it because the creatives will tell you when they smoke, they create better, they minds open up and everything like that. But now, what we're hearing is that it's just the response now is as if the person using crack cocaine or meth, and they swear to up and down it's just marijuana. So really, there is something that we're missing here with regard to actually testing these products and seeing what else they are being mixed with. What do you think?
I think that it very well could just be an increase in the THC potency itself. Right. The international findings on the ratio of CBD to THC have also shown an increase in that as well. So Yes, it could be additives, but it may also just simply be a higher potency product, and it's so remarkably different. It's unrecognizable from the cannabis that was in your parents' and grandparents' generation.
Yeah.
Real serious alcoholics drank. And now it's like a drink of choice.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Mixed with energy
Especially
drink.
for young people.
Exactly. And not only that, in the producers now, so a bottle of rum, let's say White Oak, has 40% alcohol per volume. Puncheon is 70%.
Yeah.
And there are makers who make 75% and 80%. And these things are being consumed. So I think similarly with cannabis, what has happened is that there's a need for more THC. And the suppliers are willing to provide that need. And as you were mentioning, Garth, I think they're also willing to mix things to give people that extra kick. But that extra kick now is causing the aggression and causing what older people would say would be atypical responses. People becoming violent, people becoming, almost changing their personality, becoming different people.
Yeah, cursing your mother.
Yeah.
It reached to that where, people are standing up and showing a level cost at their mother and not understanding, even the spiritual consequences of that, because that is how potent some of these substances are, Doctor, let's go to a quick break, and when we return, we actually will continue with your findings and see how you can help us understand, you and the professor can help us understand this morning so that we can leave some information out there that make people think and try to do something about it. All right, so let's go to a break, and when we return, we continue this discussion with Professor Gerard Hutchinson and Dr. Lee Powell.
Hello. Hi, this is Patricia Kent from HMP London. Can I speak to Miss Sheila, please? This is Miss Sheila. Hi, I've got an important call for you. Please hold the line.
Mommy, it's Sherry.
Oh, God, Sherry, we looking for you all the time. 3 weeks now. Where you going?
Mommy, I'm calling to tell you I get locked up. I had drugs in my luggage and I'm in England right now. In jail.
Oh, God, Sherry, what? What you do? How you reach there? Oh, God, how we gonna go?
Oh, God, Mommy, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. It'll be all right. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Eye on Dependency. Reality radio at its best every Sunday on I-95.5 FM. Don't miss.
Ah, boy. Feel like going and buy myself a senorita tonight.
Nah. You know you might be promoting slavery.
Slavery? Mm-hmm. What you talking about?
Hey, modern day slavery or human trafficking is just what some of these people just do. You know some of these women were tricked to come here? Some are held against their will, abused, and even beaten. Most times the girls don't even see any of the money that is paid for them. And every night, they just have to come out looking nice and sexy for somebody like you. Human trafficking is a serious problem and a serious crime. Persons who solicit commercial sex services may be contributing to human trafficking. A message from the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National.
Hello, my name is Raquel, a trainee inmate at HMP Drake Hall, Staffordshire, England, and you're listening to I Dependency with Garth and Natasha. Please, people, don't traffic drugs. The money is all that nice. It's not worth it.
Thank you for staying with us. This is Eye on Dependency, and we're talking about cannabis and its connection to mental health disorders, specifically psychosis, and the research that was done by the University of the West Indies. And we have in studio Professor Hutchinson and Dr. Lee Powell, who will involved in this study and are sharing some of the findings and how they relate to what we have been experiencing and seeing and discussing as far as drug use and cannabis use in particular in Trinidad and Tobago. So when we talk about policy and public health, I know we've been touching on these issues throughout the conversation, but since cannabis was decriminalized, how do you think these findings of this research should shape the public health discussions that we have going forward?
I mean, well, I agree with having an age restriction, certainly. That's obviously a first important step. But another important step is to have THC potency limits and a standardization. You need to have an upper limit on what is the maximum amount of THC potency that we will allow in this country. Are there certain products that we're just going to say no to, and if you're found with it, it's illegal, which I think we should, because there's enough evidence to suggest that some of these products are just outright dangerous. Having labels on your products so consumers can know what is the potency of what I am consuming, especially if you have people selling them and you have vendors. If you want to grow plants in your own home, where can you buy the seeds? Where can you buy the plants? What is the potency of the plant you are buying? Just a general legislative policy that allows for persons to make informed choices on their consumption, which is really consumer protection. It's protection of citizen rights, essentially, right? So those I think are the two major, the age restriction as well as THC potency.
One of the things that we spoke with Lisa about was the amount of money that the government of Ontario, where she is making off of the legalization of cannabis. And this is in the presence of an illegal market, which according to her is thriving. And we saw it for ourselves. Any built up area we walk through, there are a number of cannabis shops on that strip. Some are licensed, some are not. Anybody could go into anyone and buy whatever they want, right? But do you think that making the argument to the government that there is money to be made off of the regulation and the legalization of cannabis, would that be beneficial for the consumer in terms of the regulations that would have to be then put in place, or might that create more harm than good? That's a tough one.
A tough one. I think we have to view that also in terms of the socio-cultural environment that we're in. Yeah. I think one of the issues we have here is that even with policies, even with laws, the acceptance of the laws, the enforcement, the monitoring is less than what it should be. And therefore that creates its own problems. And even going back to the Prime Minister's statement about raising the age, the legal age for consumption, because even now where it is at 18, children will tell you that they do and go and buy and so there's very little control with regard to that. So I think having a policy, having regulations that are informed by international standards and research and science, but I think most importantly it's being able to monitor and enforce these regulations effectively so that the impact of the regulations will be seen. And I mean another side effect of, I think, the increasing drug use and increasing potency of the drugs that are being used is in school violence. And again, the attempts, and again, young people who've come to our services would talk about their colleagues in school selling them drugs, or dealers coming into the school ostensibly selling other things, but really selling cannabis and other drugs to these young people. And again, they're able to do it without any kind of restriction.
Yep.
And I think unless we're able to contain all of those things, as Garth was saying just now, the negative effects of drugs on the society will continue to
increase,
to grow. Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a problem that police officers in schools can solve, right?
Well, why not? Because no, but I know I beg
Police
to differ.
officers and social
Because,
workers?
No, but I beg to differ. As Dr. Hutchinson just said, Professor Hutchinson just said, you have adults going into these schools pretending to sell other things and they're selling the children drugs. Now, if you have police officers in school, remember, yeah, we have MTS, but MTS is not respected as much as police officers are. Believe it or not, children don't respect MTS guards. They see them as, just scarecrow rent-a-cops. The thing is, when you have real police officers, nobody in their stupid mind.
But they're not going into the
school.
Yeah.
Even my child.
They're not going in school with lethal weapons, though.
To get arrested in a school. Remember, we spoke about this years ago.
Yes.
That the first child get arrested, or the first adult or teacher who gets arrested in a school, it will send a strong message that we're not tolerating this nonsense. You can't be going into our schools to poison our children. You crazy? And get away with that? This is where I think the police officers will play a very important role.
I don't know. My concern is actually just for the kind of, what kind of environment are we creating?
No, well, we created it already.
Yeah, but
the
how is that
environment is
solving
already
the problem? That's
yeah,
my thing. But we're getting off topic.
I think you also need public education campaigns.
Yes.
So I think young people have a lot of misconceptions. So
Yes.
in 2023, I had a student project that surveyed 237 students in UE, asking them about some of their perceptions about cannabis.
Right.
And about half of them said that cannabis improves your mood and mental health. Half of them said the type of cannabis is a good indicator of its potency, which of course is a very big misconception because you have actually no idea what if you are hanging out with a group of friends and somebody says you want to pull, you have no idea what's in that. Even if they tell you, oh, it's called Kush, it's called Sativa, it's called whatever. You have no idea what's in it, what's been added to it, nothing.
Correct.
So that was kind of alarming that half the students thought just the name of it alone would give me an idea of how strong it is. About half of them also said cannabis can help you focus and improve your concentration. So this is, mind you, this is university students. We haven't even gotten to secondary level. So who knows what secondary school students believe about cannabis being able to improve your mood or help your life or being safe. I mean, there's no one out there really conducting any large-scale surveys to see what is it our young people...
Do you see the gaps in how our health system identifies and treats with cannabis-related psychosis, Professor?
Yes. As I said, there are serious gaps, and I mean, if you go to any of the public hospitals that deal with mental health problems, St. Anne's, San Fernando, Tobago, our service in Mount Hope, and you talk to the nurses, all of them will tell you, if you ask them what is if you have to identify one thing that causes young people to come into the hospital, and they will tell you it's cannabis. And in response to this study, and that we keep seeing that, we have proposed that a cannabis specific service, or at least a service that deals primarily with people, young people especially, who have cannabis use disorders, be developed to treat with that population. So we're hopeful that will be introduced across the health system. We've started our own clinic for that purpose at Mount Hope, but we're hoping it will spread to the other regional health authorities. And of course, at the rehabilitation level, we've been in discussion with the people at Rebirth House and at the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Center to work out how we could dedicate some attention to, cannabis, people who have cannabis-specific problems. And of course, as the other point is that these days, as I was saying with the alcohol, you find that people are using multiple things. So they're drinking hard alcohol, they're smoking cannabis, and taking pills, which is a whole other
and then you have Molly added to that mix, and then you have fentanyl disappearing here. I don't know how far the investigation is with that, because anytime that
very concerning.
Yeah, anytime that fentanyl hit our streets, if it does, we're going to have a bigger problem on our hands. Are we equipped to deal with the fallout from that? I keep asking the question. I don't know if anybody out there who works on an ambulance in Trinidad and Tobago here, do you all have naloxone or even Narcan with you all? And I wish somebody would call or send a message to us on Facebook or YouTube, tell us if the ambulance is starting with the fire service. Do you have these things here with regard to treating with overdose if you come up on a case with such, Doctor, you have more stuff to share with us.
Well, let's transition now to the awareness that you're talking about and community. What do you think families and young people in Trinidad need most to understand about cannabis and its connection to mental health?
I mean, well, first of all, I think, as I mentioned before, scare tactics don't work on young people. I mean, you can think about any young people you know, or when you were a young person yourself and your parents said, don't sit so close to the TV, don't have that phone so close here, you'll lose your eyes. And you're like, whatever, I'll have eyes forever. Don't listen to music so loud on your headphones. And you said, no, whatever, I'll have these great ears for the rest of my life. Because when you are young, you believe that you are invincible and invulnerable. It's just a feature of being young. So to tell the young people in your life, oh, this can happen to you, this, you could have psychosis. Yes, it may have some impact, but maybe not as much as we would like it to have. In fact, what could sometimes happen is reactance, because young people they don't like being told what to do. They don't like being told that their autonomy is being taken away from them, that they don't have freedom of choice, especially as they go from that adolescence to being in their 20s. They want to feel like there's big man and woman, right? So it's important that we appeal to that sense of autonomy and remind young people that as consumers and as citizens, you have the right to be informed about your choices, that it is your right to know what you can and cannot consume, what is in the products that you are purchasing, should you purchase it, what are the risks, what are the benefits, that is your right to know those things, that you should have access to that knowledge and information so that you can feel empowered in the choices you make. And I think that is what really resonates more with late adolescents and people in their early 20s, more than telling them scary stories. And those scary stories are also impactful, I think. But it can't be the only part of the story,
No, what about formal education? Because we have been trying to advocate for drug education in schools in a way that it informs them literally of the biological, the sociological, the physiological effects of drugs, all kinds of drugs on the human body. Just a simple science lesson.
Yes, I completely agree with you. I certainly think that should be integrated into the curriculum.
Since Mrs. Manning was Minister of Education, since then, we have been advocating and begging that it be placed on the curriculum, and that is when the problem wasn't so big yet. You understand? And nobody took us seriously. And now there's a need for it. Education, you have maths first period, you have English second period, drug education third period. What is wrong with that? I think now is the time to do it.
Totally. And alongside the police officers, put it on the
I am hoping that the Minister of Education now could step up to this level and be brave enough to say, hey, we're doing that. Let us do it. Professor, how you feel about that?
I agree. And I think it should start at the primary level.
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you.
In social studies.
Yes.
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 It should. Yes.
I agree. It's sad, but before we run out of time, and we ask the Professor and Doctor to comment on this. We go to clip A, youth consumption. This is from Natasha.
These are the clips from Stok'd Cannabis that I was mentioning earlier. These are 3 clips where she talks about what the regulations are and what she has observed as far as youth consumption of cannabis in Canada, in Toronto, where she is and operates. She talks about the education or lack thereof in terms of public awareness about the legalization process and how persons can be conscious consumers of the product. And then the final clip is kind of a dichotomy between the regulations that the cannabis industry faces and those that the alcohol industry faces, and the kind of hypocrisy of that. So we could go to Shortman, you could play them back to back, clip A, B, and C.
There was this fear among our citizens that one of the things that we heard, that a lot of young people now are going to try it, who not interested or who weren't interested before, going to now have marijuana at their beck and call. How did this see an uptick in people who...
So first of all, again, you might have heard her trying to ID that individual that came in. Everyone under 25 needs to be ID'd. Young people cannot buy from legal stores. They certainly can buy from illegal sources, and that existed before and it exists now. The government sends mystery shoppers around to make sure that we're following all the regulations. We cannot even allow a young person in the store. So from a legal source, the opportunity for young people to buy is very minimal. But I would say too, how do you see the difference of a young person drinking alcohol and getting hammered versus smoking a joint? It's an intoxicant either way. In my opinion, alcohol is worse. Other people have different opinions, but
Absolutely.
right?
There's nothing to stop an adult from giving a child a split or drink.
Right.
In any event, so you can't legislate that.
Right, you can't legislate that. Grown-ups have to be grown-ups. There have been a lot of stories in the news since legalization about children getting their hands on edibles because they look like candy.
Yes.
Our edibles don't look like candy. Well, they're not allowed to. We are not allowed to sell edibles that look like gummy bears. Right. They're square. They're not attractive.
Yeah.
And when these news articles come out, they're all about, there's pictures they show are, the illegal version of Fuzzy Peaches or Skittles, Starburst, and so it's like, don't pin that on us. We are not selling that, right? You can't say that that's us. And then at the end of the day, if the parent who has bought the edibles isn't tucking them away in the high cupboard, you can't pin that on us either, right? Like if a child drank a 40-pounder of vodka, is the same article going to end up in the newspaper?
No, it's not.
Exactly.
And if you hear how many times
has there been a concurrent sort of education or awareness program alongside the legalization? Is there?
From the government? No. The Ontario Cannabis Store that is our wholesaler, they run some ads. They do. Actually, now they do. In the last year, they run some ads on social media about legal cannabis versus illegal. Know what you're getting versus not, you don't know what's in it. Pesticides that are included in the cannabis illegal source versus, because again, Health Canada has regulated the kinds of additives and pesticides that can be used in the legal cannabis products, whereas that's not at all regulated, of course, in the illegal space. So there's a little bit of education. We have to carry a one-page information sheet in case customers ask for it, which no one, of course, does. But we are mandated to have it available in case customers.
And that is from OCS or from Health Canada? Health Canada doesn't do any.
It was probably a combination of both. They put this together. We have to print it off and make sure it's available. I can guarantee you that not one person has asked for that, but we have to have it available.
Consumer information.
Yeah, so the one thing that is that the regulators are the same regulators that regulate bars and alcohol and gaming and all of those things.
Yeah.
What we have discovered is that they're not interested in shutting us down. They want to make sure that we're operating appropriately. And so, for example, if we didn't have that out, they would say, you need to have that. I don't know of anyone that's been fined for anything. That is 100% true. They really just want to make sure that you're operating appropriately. If they found out that we let someone in who's under 19, they would, almost like give us a write-up, but not a fine. There has not been a financial fine. We're also not really allowed to advertise. So marketing is really restricted for cannabis stores. So if we had a billboard, you can have a billboard. There are certain things it's not allowed to say. So it's not allowed to list pricing. It's not really allowed to list the brands. But it could have Stok'd cannabis. We can use the word cannabis because it's in our official name.
Yeah.
If it wasn't, we wouldn't be able to use the word. You could say Stok'd cannabis, address, hours, that sort of thing. We can't use anything in our advertising that would be attractive to children. So animals, celebrities. I don't know if you know the story about when Snoop Dogg first partnered with, I think it was Canopy Growth, to launch his original products in Canada. It couldn't be called Snoop's because that related to him, so it had to be called, but anyway, it couldn't say Snoop.
So he can't be identified.
He can't be identified because that might incentivize somebody to buy that product because it's got his name on it.
Are they just like us in denial here about the children? The children know. The children have been getting it.
Well, the other thing is you can walk into a liquor store with 6 children in tow, walking all of the aisles, and you can buy everything in that store. You could load up your cart and buy as much alcohol as you wanted with your children by your side.
Right.
And no one would bat an eye.
You
can't bring a child. People can't even bring a baby who doesn't even understand. You can't have a baby in the store.
It's so contradictory.
It's so contradictory. It's the stigma, right? It's the stigma being perpetuated.
Go ahead, smoke your weed, but still.
But we still don't think it's okay. Trudeau said it's okay, but we still don't think it's okay. Save the children. Exactly.
Save the children. Keep the weed away from them, as if they don't already know about it. And again, that
Any comments, Professor?
Well, it was interesting to hear the degree to which the regulations go in terms of limiting access but as she pointed out, even with those extensive regulations, there's still people who are able to source from illegal vendors, and there is still a problem. So I think it underscores the need for extensive regulations, but also to recognize that the scope and the scale of the problem is extremely great. So we have to we really have to get started, otherwise we'll be completely left behind, and then a lot of the problems in the society will just expand and
exacerbate. Yeah, Doctor.
Yeah, I think that's, something we didn't talk about, I think is as important is also the reasons people use cannabis. So there's a paper that came out earlier this year from a very large-scale study on cannabis in the UK called Cannabis and Me by Professor Marta De Forti in King's College. And in young men, right? When we talk about places like Canada or California or Colorado, we are not the same. We're not the same, right? So in terms of thinking about social inequalities, about groups that may be experiencing any kind of disadvantage, at who are the groups that are most at risk, and about thinking about the intersectionality of issues like trauma, childhood sexual abuse, unemployment. The reasons that a person may use weed matters. It matters, and it puts you at a potentially can put you at a greater risk. So are these the groups we should be looking at more? Are there specific groups in the population that we should be looking at more to identify as you are more at risk than other groups? Maybe.
So for the sake of and we hope this will be carried in.
Than other groups? Maybe.
So for the sake of and we hope this will be carried in news at some point, let me ask the question again, and we give you a chance to respond without any interruptions. Professor, we started with you. Should substance abuse be placed on the curriculum in our schools?
Yes, definitely, and starting at the primary school level.
Doctor?
Yes, at the primary school level, but it cannot be taught in a way that is just for the sake of academics passing an exam, because you look at it, we teach children about nutrition, but Trinidad has the sixth highest rate of childhood obesity in the world, right? So obviously we're teaching them about nutrition, but where is it falling on deaf ears? I don't know. So it has to be integrated into getting children to want to live a holistic well-being. So it means being considerate of what you're putting in your body. What is the food you're putting into your body? What are the substances you're putting in your body, including cannabis? So it should be integrated into curriculum, yes, but also with a degree of, I would say, combining it with maybe mental well-being or holistic well-being, so that children feel like they have an impetus or a desire to abstain from those substances, not just because the teacher said it's bad and, they have all these bad things associated with it.
No, Professor. Go ahead.
Sorry, and I think to follow up on that point, I think the other issue is that we also that education has to be ongoing, even into adulthood, even into community education, because if you're teaching the children something but the adults in their environment are doing the very opposite to what you're teaching them, they're going to your message is not going to have any kind of traction. And by adults, I refer not just to teachers, not just to parents, but even to teachers. And the behavior that they display towards cannabis and drugs will also have an impact. So there has to be a really whole of society approach, even as we engage education, because I think there is still a lot of tolerance for substance use in the society, and once that tolerance continues, even positive messages will be drowned out.
There are some people who have some questions for you all, but before we do that, do you want to play Chrisanne's piece? This is a young lady. What school she attends?
St. Joseph's Convent, San Fernando.
Right. Let me remind you about St. Joseph's Convent, San Fernando, before we go to Chrisanne. There were news broke last year, early year before, where 5 students were arrested at that school for selling brownies.
Yes. And I think 1 or 2 were hospitalized as well.
Hospitalized.
Yeah.
Because they were just sharing out these brownies, selling them, and then next thing you know, people started losing their minds when they go back to class, and because they weren't educated on how to consume brownies. You smoke a joint and within 10-15 minutes you start to feel the effects. But with eating something, it's different. It has to go through the digestive process. And they didn't know that, so they took a bite and nothing happened. They took another bite and nothing happened, and then they ate the whole brownie. And before you know it, they were in the hospital. Doc, you familiar with that, right?
Yes, I remember the...
Right. But listen to Chrisanne.
Right, so this Chrisanne was a member of our recent Youth Speak Out panel of young people who are speaking up about issues of concern to them. And she was afforded the opportunity to go to the Yale Scholars Program So this video, she is sharing her experience at that program. So we just wanted to share that with you as we prepare to send our kids off to school tomorrow.
Yes.
Here is an inspirational example of what young people can and many are setting examples for themselves and their families at home and abroad.
And she don't drink or smoke.
No.
So let's go to D. Hinkson and hear Christian.
There's a South African Zulu proverb that says, I am because we are. So allow me to introduce myself. I am Christian BDC. I am also the first Trinidadian to have ever been admitted to Yale Young Global Scholars. And thanks to the support of our nation and international friends, the first to attend this program. When my mom told me people would want to hear my experience at Yale, I realized that describing it would be harder than I thought. I had scanned dictionaries, and the only word that seemed to capture it was transcendent. The path to Yale was clear, thanks to the resounding support from nationals and international allies. I wasn't just excited, I was eager to dive into an opportunity that would enrich my perspective on politics, law, and economics. The flight to New York was unforgettable. Yes, there was turbulence, but seeing the concrete jungle below made every fear irrelevant. My mom and I felt deeply grateful. This was the American dream in motion. Hard work truly does pay off. And when I arrived in New Haven, I was awed. Yale University, an Ivy League school ranked among the top 10 universities globally. The buildings with their red bricks and collegiate Gothic architecture transported me to an Italian piazza or the heart of Rome. Every archway, spire, and ivy-clad facade told a story. The first moments were intimidating. I mean, I was an island girl, far from home without my mom. But that feeling faded very quickly. Strangers helped me with luggage, roommates became sisters, and new friends from Mozambique, the Philippines, Nigeria, Colombia, Uganda, and the United States became brothers and sisters. We were a diverse community of bright futures. In my track, politics, law, and economics, the college-level lectures and seminars covered pivotal topics: human rights, youth representation in an aging Japan, AI from an anthropological lens, agricultural microcredit, and terrorism. We debated contentious ideas. Are human rights truly fair or just survival tools for the poor? Does support for young politicians match election outcomes? How does AI create an illusion of understanding? And while poverty rates have decreased, population growth masked progress. These conversations challenged my perspective and deepened my understanding of global issues. It also made me reflect on Trinidad and Tobago, a nation full of potential, often constrained by narrow thinking. But with the right people, realistic ideals, consistency, and the support of leaders and citizens, I believe we can rise. Saying goodbye to Yale was bittersweet. In 2 weeks, this place became so meaningful. I participated fully, leading a debate team to victory, performing my spoken word Little Island Big People Right Here, presenting at the speaker series with my topic Are People Bad or Broken, and excelling in my capstone projects. Through it all, I knew I would not have been there without God, the kindness of citizens and international friends. I am the first Trinidadian to attend Yale Young Global Scholars because we are people fortified, encouraged, and enriched in compassion. So, to conclude, thank you to everyone who contributed, in big ways or small. You have blessed me with an opportunity that brings joy and wisdom to my family and me. And I hereby vow to use what I have learned to improve Trinidad and Tobago and to make a positive impact with every action. Because together we aspire and together we achieve. Thank you. Bye.
Papa.
Yay! We are so proud of you, Chrisan.
Yes.
Well done.
I'm now seeing it, and it shows. We have those young people who will try drugs. She didn't. Look where it took her. We don't know if some are being held back because of their indulgence. We don't know, but they have to make an informed choice whether they want to go down that road, because I could tell you it takes you away from a lot, and if we have a gathering here, if there are those who hitting hard drugs, or you will see after a while they pull away and go in a corner and stay away for about 30 minutes and then come back, everybody with a smile on their face, and then because it's still deemed as antisocial. So I'm asking the question now, do you all see, because remember alcohol was prohibited at one time, now we have bars everywhere. To now and have cannabis shops just like we have bars.
Well, I think the signs certainly suggest that is where we're heading. And going back to Natasha's point earlier about the economics, I mean, one of the drivers for all these bars is economics, both in terms of the distributors and the producers, as well as the sellers at that retail level. So I think that the direction that we're heading is toward that kind of easy availability and accessibility for cannabis. And I think that is why the regulations and the clear policy and the education and all the things we've talked about have to develop, in a sense, to anticipate that, so that when it occurs, the potential negative outcomes will be reduced, if not minimized.
Because it's not going to go away. Just as there are people who unwind with a glass of wine in the evening, there are people who do it with a joint. But it's how you do it, where you do it. You do it in front of your children, or you protect your children from it. Doc?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it's for young people. You have to make the decision of the kind of adult you want to be. It's your choice, right? And those choices should be informed. So whether it's using social media all the time, being on your phone, looking at pornography, drinking alcohol, smoking cannabis, it's your life, right? And you are the one that has to make the choices that go towards the adult you want to be. These things are not going away, right? All of those things I mentioned, the cannabis, the access to alcohol, the pornography, now AI and ChatGPT, they can use that as well for their schoolwork. So, but every choice has consequences. And, there's this perception that freedom is being able to do what you want, when you want, how you want. That's not freedom, right?
Natasha and I was talking about this one time where, let's say you come in a circle with, middle and upper class people, and they ask, so we drink Black Label and we drink vodka and, Grey Goose and so on. And you drink? No, I don't drink. But I smoke marijuana. And they look like, oh. and they drift away from you slowly because you smoke.
Yep.
But them drinking all kind of overproof 60 and 70, and they see nothing wrong with that.
And
but
they
from the time you
down
see
at you,
you're
smoking weed.
they look down at you because you decide, well, no, I don't drink, but I take a joint now and then,
There's stigma,
Yeah, there's a stigma attached to it. So,
But I just wanted to add to what Dr. Lipa was saying in terms of, yes, young people should be empowered to make informed choices, but also when they don't, there should be a safety net to catch them when they fall, right?
That's
because there's the inherent possibility of them rebuilding their lives, and there must be the adults in the society have to take responsibility for young people when they fail and catch them.
So even in the INTREPID data, we asked a question, have you ever tried to quit using cannabis before? And we saw that some of the controls said so, but a larger number of the cases for the persons with psychosis said yes to that question, saying that they had tried to quit, but they were unable to quit. What that speaks to is obviously a need for cannabis cessation services, that there are people out there who know that this is a problem for their life. They know that it is impairing, their quality of life. They want to stop. Where can they get help? Right? That's needed as well.
Let's take some calls, 622-3937. Natasha, could you find that message the lady sent her Dependency message inbox to, she said she'd be listening closely, attentively, and because she still insists that we stigmatizing and demonizing the herb. Right, so so 622-3937, we have Professor Hutchinson and Dr. Lipau in studio with us, and there was a lady who called in. She said she's in her late 70s, I think, and she still takes her marijuana. So how do we prevent people from purchasing it? But then if police hold you with it, you're still getting arrested. And in a country that's decriminalized, we should be hearing less and less of people getting arrested for cannabis, shouldn't we? So I don't know what's the reason, but hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
To the whole panel, Professor, the Doctor, Gata Natasha. I would like to commend where the program reached this morning. And I will refer to the professor. When your maiden contribution in Parliament, you say it's not who is right, it's what is right. And decriminalization is an error, was wrong. Where we reached this morning, where you reached this morning, is where they have to be, regulating the potency and that kind of thing. You can't turn back now, because they had further things to do, like medical marijuana and things, which is first world countries doing, the prescribing marijuana. So we have to move forward to that and make strong children instead of fixing broken men. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. 622-3937, good morning.
Good morning, Gart. Good morning, Natasha. Good morning, listeners. I'm calling from Arima. First, I have to congratulate Natasha and you, Gart, for this immense program continuously. You know this thing that they call weed, marijuana, hemp. Many people take it without eating because people say long ago they used to take it after they finish work and nothing needs to go wrong with them, because when they finish do their work, they have the meal, they have the rest, and they take a little something, not too much, and they will go and sleep and have a rest. But nowadays the young people is not doing that, and they are destroying themselves. And when they destroy themselves, at the end of it all, it's left up to the state, because when they go to the hospital, they must take care of them, and they are damaging themselves and their family also too. Gart and Natasha, have a blessed and wonderful day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I found the comments when you're ready.
Morning, Gart and the panel.
Morning.
And to everyone. Morning, Gart. And Natasha. I think it kind of awkward now when you say you don't smoke, Gart. That's how prevalent it is. Yeah, I don't know where you all are. And what I was told,
when you say you don't drink?
Yeah. Listen, Natasha, when you say you don't smoke, I think that is more prevalent now. I think it's fading away, but when you say you don't drink, yeah, that's what I'm picking up on the ground. I'm still out there, I was in a place in a watering hole, and the owner was telling me and some other guys, because there was a young lady there that was smoking, that they are seeing more women smoking, what they're observing. There's a high prevalence of women smoking marijuana now, and young women. Just go out to Port of Spain lunchtime. Let's walk. You're not blind. Let's walk all over Trinidad. You see women all over the stores, the work, coming out smoking. So this thing is spreading like a wildfire. So when you think it's just the boys, I think the women are actually catched up or a little nose. And when I asked the proprietor, he said, yo, young women smoking more from what he observed. He out there every day. Young women than men. So I think that Well, we have a professional in education, Dr. Dowlat, and I agree with starting the education in the primary school on drugs. I think that should be a priority in dealing with the runaway. Because a runaway horse. Because it was not taught properly. Remember, it's not 4 trees, It's 44 trees. What do you think, Professor, causing a lot of robbing families and a lot of crime is because people touching man goods. People touching things that is not their own. And people have found, Trini will find innovative ways of making $1. So it's not just 4 trees, it's 44 trees. So I agree with that. So I hope that the new education minister is trained in that. That should be a nice little policy. But a lot of young women are smoking weed hard right now.
Thank you very much, my brother. Before we take another call, this sister here, and I hope I have your name right. Let me just read this first part, right, Natasha?
Okay. So.
Quinilyn, her surname is Selassie. Selassie. Was it? Faculty Selassie. And she said fear-based propaganda with the infliction of a continuance in Nixon reefer madness. Now, you're all familiar with that reefer madness, right? Which was a bunch of crap, but by medical professionals who dispense opioids that create addicts. And yes, I know nothing about traditional and herbal healing. Professor, how do you respond to that?
Well, I mean, I think there is historically there were some claims that were overblown, but I think the evidence is pretty strong now, and I think the other issue is that we have to accept that there are people who cannot use or should not use some substances.
Right.
And if they live in an environment where they're being constantly encouraged to do so, they are going to continue and they are going to face the consequences. And I think now with the popularity of traditional and herbal medicine, people do acknowledge some of the benefits of medical marijuana, but the question is, going back to our discussion with regard to regulations, how do you distinguish that from the weed that is available on the street or in brownies or from vendors and drug pushers, that you have no idea what you're getting from them?
Anything else to say, Natasha?
Well, basically, she's just repeating the talking points about, she's of the belief that these doctors should also speak about the frequent use of alcohol crossed with pills such as ecstasy, molly, and other drugs, what's causing psychotic use among youth, not capital N-O-T, ganja. And I
mean, our study did ask about all substances.
Yes.
We did. And we did look at the association between all of the substances that people said they were using in Trinidad and psychotic disorders, and that was it. Cannabis was the one that was found to have the strongest association. So I didn't make that data up.
Right.
I definitely didn't. It is what it is. That's what we're seeing.
622-3937. If ladies said you were going to call, so let's hear what you have to say to debunk what the professional said here this morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello, Nat, and the guest, Natasha. Good morning.
Morning.
But all that confidence, too much confidence in ministers. No ministers can change nothing. They can't turn around the clock. That's where the world going to now. Now I'll explain this here. It have a lot of youth, they smoking plenty, and they drinking power drink and all kind of things, and they mashing up themselves. But let me tell you something, my lady now, she's about 58 years, she does smoke with no alcohol, absolutely. She don't drink the alcohol. Maybe man a little occasion, a little thing might drink a little beer and that is it. But she don't drink at all, and she 58 and look like that is 38. That is the thing. You see, when you know them kind of drink and sting and all them things, I make a mistake and buy, because I don't know what she tell me, buy some new drink or just a little simple juice. I bring that thing. She said, hello, we bring that for me. I don't drink them thing. So I just called to show the point. And it have a lot of young girls who drinking that and mashing up their body. I saw that tattoo all over the screen, thing all over them, the face, ring up. They look kind of weird.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Thanks. You go. Here we go now.
Oh,
Lord Jesus. Hello, good morning.
Word.
Hello? 6223937.
How easy it is for people to jam you?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate, but
The discrimination.
Professor, okay, before we take this one, hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning to each and everyone there. God. Hello?
Yes.
Yes, God. God, Larry said it all. Give Larry a clap hand for me, please, now.
Okay.
Okay.
Lord. With regard to data, folks, do you think that we are falling behind with regard to collecting data in Trinidad and Tobago? Because I keep saying between our St. Anne's Mental Institution, the private hospitals, the public hospitals, shouldn't they be collecting something and releasing it to the public to tell us what is the main drug that's circulating around there that's causing psychosis? Or shouldn't we have access to that as the public?
Well, they do collect data. They do collect admission data and referral data. The speed with which it is analyzed and collated from the various hospitals is sometimes a little slow, but I think the bigger point is access for the public.
Yes.
It's not easily available, and I think that is where the problem is, making it available, whether it's on some public site that anybody can access or regular release to the press. But I think that is certainly necessary.
We do need to collect data on THC potency. That much is certain. Because we do not have proper estimates of what is actually contained in the products that are circulating right now.
How much the cannabis in use now is local or imported? All of these?
We don't know. Indoor grown.
Or if they're additives to it, we don't know. We just don't know.
Because our father was telling me that the marijuana that he knew, what his son using now, it smells different.
It's yes.
No, there's a sort of skunky smell to the ones when it's grown indoors, right? Because and the ones that are being grown indoors even could be potentially even more dangerous than the ones growing outdoors, because now you have the opportunity to do what you want with that plant inside, away from the prying eyes, and we don't know what the THC content in it can be. So it's like playing Russian roulette when you light one of these products.
So in essence, it's the same Russian roulette that hard drug users, i.e. crack cocaine, you don't know what kind of cocaine you're buying now either. So it's the same with cannabis in terms of the potency.
And I think with the hybridization of cannabis over the years, you know, everyone wants a hybrid, and they're selectively breeding plants to make it more high THC potency. And of course, those are risks, but there's also the question of preservation of the biodiversity of the species, right? Because there's no denying that the plant does have the potential to offer therapeutic and medicinal benefits. Now, if we continue along the road of consistently hybridizing, you stand to lose some of these strains that could carry those medicinal benefits. So we are thinking about this in this very narrow lens of just high THC is better, but you don't know what you are losing in some of those low potency strains. You don't know if there are other cannabinoids or other, you know, if there's a high CBD plant out there that does carry genuine therapeutic benefits. And we are so focused on the THC that we are breeding this out into existence. Because, you know, when I was collecting data, I was interviewing all kinds of people. And one of the comments I did get was, I don't even know where to find low potency weed. I don't know where to buy it. Right? I used to get from the Rastaman down the road. I don't know where to get it anymore. So that is a risk, right? We are losing the biodiversity of it.
Yep.
And in some places, low potency weed is bouillon, or what some people will call boo. You know, it's then giving it a kick.
Yes.
You know,
Yep.
so let's what's the final? What's the key takeaway you want listeners? And we start with you, Doctor. What the key takeaway you want listeners to remember from this research?
From this research, well, in particular, the INTREPID study is that starting cannabis at an early age puts you at a greater risk. It doubles your risk of psychosis later on. So beginning cannabis below age 15. And that using cannabis frequently also doubles your risk. So frequent use. Why is this important in the context of our existing legislation? We know from international studies THC potency is important, and we have no information about THC potency locally. So we have no idea we decriminalize this, and we have no idea what we're using, what's in it. And of course, that's a big risk for all consumers, especially young people.
Professor?
I think we have to continue to...
For all consumers, especially young people.
Professor?
I think we have to continue to emphasize and underline consideration, because mental health problems are real and they can be very destructive, and not just destructive in the short term, but destructive in the long term.
I can't add anything to that other than to say thank you all very much, and to apologize to those of you who stay with us regardless of that buffering, because I know I don't have all that patience. If I'm looking at something on YouTube and it's buffering, I switch it. So to those of you who fought it with us, we thank you very much, and we hope at some point we can have this problem solved, because now it's radio you can watch, and we are happy for that, because instead of describing a product to you, we can actually show it to you, which is a plus for the work that we're doing. So we hope that at some point this problem will be rectified. But we really want to say thank you to Professor Hutchinson and Dr. Lipo for this work that you all have. Was this passed on to the relevant people so that they can have this?
Yes. So we'll see where it goes.
Okay, but you did pass on the
Yes,
findings
yes.
to the relevant authorities, hoping that
Yes.
we can pick something up from this.
Yes.
I'm really hoping to see that. You say primary, I was thinking even kindergarten, yes, to start this drug education. Get them scared early, you know, that you want to listen, folks. If I wasn't introduced to crack cocaine, we would not have been having this program this morning.
Yes.
We would not have had a program called Dependency. All right? Let's be real. It's because of this drug taking me down to the lowest of my life, spending 6 months in prison, that I decided, no, something has to be done about warning people about, and for me, my drug of choice was crack cocaine, right? And when I found myself looking up at the ceiling in the prison, after looking up at the sky in Tetron Barracks and training people and being respected as a contributing member of society, to reach to the point where now I was lining up for ration, you know, or diet as they call it in prison, to me that was a nuclear blast for me. And I knew then that following our footsteps there would be even more fallouts. Right? And that was back in the 80s I'm talking about, right? It pains my heart. It's not something that I had planned to do with my life, but I can tell you that one wrong choice can make you throw away a career like I did. Because for some of us, we cannot just drink or smoke or use hard drugs without a consequence. Yeah? It still boggles my mind today, to this day. I'm telling you. And it might sound selfish, but you know, if we had to go to Glad, so I can get back my uniform and continue my service. I'm serious. That is how much I miss it. But it's all because of the consequence of making the wrong choice. Make informed choices out there with your lives, people. Don't study people and say, yeah, I use it and nothing happened to me. Look, nothing wrong with me up to this day. That's what you think. But, but it happened to me. So I can speak for me. It destroyed my career. I don't want that to happen to other people's children, friend or foe. Tash?
Yeah, I mean, this is why we do what we do, and again, I have to say this again. I'm very grateful to Dr. Lipau for reaching out in the first place and inviting yourselves here, because this is really confirming a lot of what we've been saying over the years, with our anecdotal evidence, and backing it up now with the empirical data to suggest and to point to the link between mental health issues or disorders and cannabis use, even despite the stigma and the permissiveness, because it's a strange mix. There's stigma and there's permissiveness about cannabis. It is a drug, Miss Selassie. It is a mood or mind altering substance, and just like alcohol and other drugs, we need to be mindful of how it is consumed and by whom. I was interested by the comment that was made by one of the callers about the increased use by women, and I wonder what that means, or why that is, because we know that women are not frequently studied in health issues, and that is a concern for me. But again, it's a first step in health issues, and that is a concern for me. But again, it's a first step, I think, in our further examination scientifically of the impact of cannabis on our society.
And that's quite interesting. One person might eat KFC every day, and another person may eat KFC every day as well, and one of them get overweight and one of them stay skinny.
Yes.
However, if you modify the KFC enough and you keep adding more and more and more and more oil, and you're eating it now for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then even the person who is predisposed to be skinny will eventually become overweight. That's what's going on with THC. That if you modify it enough, even if you don't carry that risk, you are tampering with it so much that you are now putting yourself in greater danger.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, Natasha, let's
So we've had a very powerful conversation here with Dr. Joni Lipau and Professor Gerard Hutchinson on cannabis, psychosis, and what the research... Indeed.
Yep. So, Natasha, let's
So we've had a very powerful conversation here with Dr. Joni Lipau and Professor Gerard Hutchinson on cannabis, psychosis, and what the research means for Trinidad and Tobago.
The message is clear. Early and frequent cannabis use, especially among young people, carries real risks. And our policies and community page, don't forget to like, share, and keep the conversation going.
Join us again next Sunday at 10 a.m. for more real talk on Iron Dependency. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. And
just to let you know in advance, we have New Life Ministries officials in here with us. That's a drug rehab facility, to speak to you about what goes on up there and who should be there. All right, so take care, folks. Professor Hutchinson, Dr. Lipau.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
And continue doing your great work.
Yes.
You're welcome. Take care. All right, so we are out of here, people. We leave you with Tamika to read the news at 12.
Good afternoon.
Glory, glory.